Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salamu rasulullah, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Catherine Jones, emotional and spiritual resilience coach, mentor and educator, and I've been talking about behavior management being oppression of our children. And I've talked about various topics like rewards and consequences, fear, shame, labeling, and projecting onto children. Today, I want to tell you a story, a bit about my life before and my life now, and share a bit of the difference so you can see how it works. So after becoming a Muslim, I was married very quickly under a lot of pressure from around me. And unfortunately, I was married to an abusive person who used every form of abuse that exists. I'm not going to go into and elaborate what all the different types of abuse is, because that's not what this video is about. I just want to paint the picture. By the time I left that marriage, my youngest was 5 months old. My second child was about 2, and I think my first child was about 5. So they've already experienced quite a lot of abuse, the older two. And they'd also experienced a very disconnected mother. So I had completely shut down emotionally because it hurt too much. So they weren't getting the emotional connection that they needed. I was physically shutting down. I was so ill, my doctor was worried I was going to die. So I wasn't able to tend to matters in the best way I possibly could. And spiritually, I was hanging on by a thread. That spiritual thread led me to making dua to Allah, and alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala led me by the hand, really, out of that situation. And alhamdulillah, I am where I am today. But there were such massive consequences to this. So for many years afterwards, there was battle in the family court. The whole defense and why he was claiming that he should have custody of children and everything, was his whole defense was that I was a liar. I was lying about what happened. And unfortunately, the way the court system works, judges don't actually get to see who we are. All they get to see is what's in the affidavits and our lawyers speaking on our behalf. And being a Muslim woman covered in the court, you can imagine the preconceptions that judges would have of me. So it wasn't until the trial, about 5 years later, when the judge actually heard that I was quite an articulate and educated woman, that he started to believe what I was saying. And yeah, alhamdulillah, you know, Allah knows how to set everything up perfectly. My ex had to actually represent himself in court for various reasons, won't go into those details either, which meant he was questioning me when I was on the stand. And he was trying to use his manipulative language to get me to say something that would put me in it. And by this stage, I had such clarity, alhamdulillah, you know, I had been working on myself consistently all that time. And I was able to look at him and go, no, you did do those things to me. And all of this helped the judge see the reality of it. And alhamdulillah, we got a good ruling. And it wasn't until that point, which was now, we're talking about 15 or 16 years later, that I was now able to start parenting my children the way I wanted to. Because while you're in the family court, there's so many restrictions. They are like, make all these rulings about how you have to be, and it makes it really difficult to parent the way you want to be. But the problem was I was still very hurt and broken. I hadn't had any relief from all the pressure to really work on myself. And so I spent a lot of time projecting things onto my children. I've already shared an example in a previous video about projecting onto my boys that they were turning out like their dad, and as a result being harsh and hard on them. I was also very sensitive to others' criticism, which meant that when schools were critical, when my kids weren't able to get to school on time because they were, struggling emotionally, and I was still struggling emotionally, that I would be hard on my kids because I was, trying to get them out the door so we wouldn't get into trouble. So I was behaving in a way towards my children, which was innocent oppression. I call it innocent oppression because there's no way for 1 second I would ever want to oppress my children. I didn't realize that's what I was doing. And over time, alhamdulillah, I came to understand our human experience, how our feelings work. And as I grew to understand all of this, my thinking got clearer. A lot of thinking I had about the future and the past and all of that fell away. My hurt from the past fell away. Everything fell away to give me clarity to be able to see my children for who they really are and what they really need and how they need me to show up. And the shift in our relationship has been very profound, and the shift in their behavior has been very profound, in the sense that I'm not looking at managing their behavior now. I'm more looking at connecting them, directing them, guiding them, sharing the truth with them, but all doing it not in a lectury, sit down and you have to listen to me way, more in a, do you know what, I made dua to Allah, and you know what, Allah answered my dua this way, like conversational. Or when they come to me and they've got some problem, instead of trying to take over and take charge of it, asking them the questions, how do you think we can solve this? And it's because I'm there for them. I'm not leaving them on their own. I'm not pushing them away to solve things by themselves. It's like, let's be an alliance and figure this out together. And at what I have seen happening now in my older children, who are now 22, nearly 19, nearly 17, is them making choices to do things to please Allah, changing things around so that they can be better servants of Allah. Are they perfect? A long way from it. There's a long way to go. But they're doing it for themselves. They're making the choices for themselves. They're not doing it because they fear me. They're not doing it because I've shamed them. They're not doing it because of rewards or consequences or any of that. They're doing that because they feel that connection with Allah and they want to please Allah and get that reward from Allah. And don't you think that is far more powerful than anything else? So what are the lessons from this? The lessons from this are, we have to look at ourselves first. We have to work on ourselves first before we try to change anything in relation to our children. It's not going to work while we still are challenged. Number two, when it comes to our children, it has to be connection before correction. It's not about don't do this, do that. It's about checking in with them, connecting with them, getting them to talk about it and working with them. Connection before correction. And the correction comes through a very respectful and compassionate manner. The other thing I'd like to add as a lesson in here is that if you have an angry child, see what fear or injustice might be underneath that, because we're often misunderstanding angry children as being a problem. They're not a problem, they have a problem, and they need us to be their ally. So why is this relevant to each and every one of us? And I say us because I need to remind myself before I remind anyone else. Because on the day of judgment, we are going to be accountable for our flock. We know that. We all have a flock and we're accountable for our flock. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden injustice on himself before he's forbidden injustice upon us. And if we're innocently oppressing others, and we're innocently oppressing our children, and we're corrupting our children's fitrah, this is an injustice to our children, and we will be accountable for injustice. And I don't think ignorance is an excuse these days. There are so many ways in which we can learn. There are so many ways in which I share with you for free or at a low price, ways in which you can learn about this. It's why I have put together a whole range of talks, workshops, and programs for teachers and parents so we can do a better job of bringing up children, of caring for our flock, so that we can show up in the way the Prophet ﷺ did, with respect and compassion, when we're guiding them to the best way of living their lives and helping them develop their good character. So I hope that from this video series, and if you haven't watched all the other videos, I do encourage you to go back through them all. I encourage you to learn more, follow what I'm doing, follow the videos that I post, get me to come and talk to your community, or come and do workshops in your community, or jump online and join what I have online. Inshallah, we can do a better job of raising this next generation if we have a better understanding that behavior is not the problem, it is the symptom. So Jazakallah khair for listening through this video series. I hope it's been beneficial. I look forward to reading your comments and your takeaways and your questions. Please feel free to share those. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.